Welcome in, everybody. Fun fact, at the time of this recording, the Rays are about to get swept. Let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Rays Rewind with Buschman and Drew.
Jansen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arose Arena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome in, everybody. It is another episode of the Rays Rewind podcast, courtesy of the Sick Media Network. We are the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast in all the lands. And tonight's going to be a fun show because we're both drinking at the time of this recording. So cheers to you. Cheers to you.
It's in the background. There we go. Yeah, I got a little bourbon.
I got a little Sweetwater IPA G13. It's a nice 9%. So by the time I drink this, we'll be spewing out epithets right now.
This looks like a lot of bourbon. It's because I was at the end of the bottle, and so I just, just like, all right, I'll just finish it off.
Before we get into
I don't know if I'm going to take this whole down.
Do it. Why not? I'm going to drink the whole thing and probably get another one while
I got a newborn, middle of the night feedings. I don't know. That's not a good recipe for success.
That's true. That's a good point. Before we get into our tirade tonight on tonight's show, make sure to go to our YouTube page at the Sick Podcast, Rays Rewind on YouTube. Hit that notification, subscribe button so you can get new episodes when they drop. At the time of the recording, the Rays are going to get swept by the Boston Red Sox. Right now, it is 8-3. It escalated quickly because I looked at my phone. It was 4-3, and then all of a sudden it was 8-3. And we're going to get swept, and we stink. And we're going to be a 500 team the rest of the way if they can't get it together. These past couple of games have been just sloppy baseball, miscues, bad managing too.
Mm-hmm.
So crack one open and share our misery, everybody. That's a Rays fan because they don't look like a good team right now. And it sucks because we came off of a good road trip. Come back in, and you're going to get swept by the Boston Red Sox, and now you're going to go from third place back into fourth place, and that's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fun at all. Drew, what are your thoughts about this team right now?
Man, yeah, no, you said it. I mean, a lot of good has happened since we last recorded.
Yeah,
I forget if we recorded Wednesday night or Thursday, but they took 3 or 4 in Boston and then 2 or 3 in Toronto, and I don't think anyone would have. That was, certainly fine with me.
everybody's like, look, everybody was like, hey, they're back, baby. We're right the ship. We're this is the team we all thought we were gonna be, and how gullible are we?
You could argue too they could have swept Boston in Boston, but you felt great coming back. And then honestly, after the series in Boston, I really didn't look at the Red Sox as a team. Obviously they have great pitching this year, or at least on paper, it doesn't seem like they would, but they're all performing very, very well. So, that always scares you because pitching keeps you in every game. But I really wasn't too concerned about the series. I kind of felt like 2 of 3 was very possible for the Rays to take 2 of 3. And so for them to come out and be this bad at home is really disappointing on many levels, especially since they've normally been a strong home team.
Here's some other bad news. Josh Lowe went out in the first inning.
Yeah.
With a side strain, so it could be his oblique. So he might be out another 6 weeks again.
Well, it's the same side too that he was hurt.
Yeah, happy, joy, happy.
So that's a minimum.
I think we should drink more on this show.
Yeah, we should. It's a minimum 4 to 6 weeks, I think.
Right? Yeah, it's another month or so.
Yeah, so I can already hear people saying, "Listen, they're only a game and a half out of the wild card," and that's true. It's not. There is still a lot of baseball left, but man, this team looks bad. It feels like we're back now to the stage where at the end of April, first day or 2 of May, where they were in Milwaukee, where it was like, all right, this is the lowest point of the season. but it all coincided with, new month of the calendar. Obviously the huge standing ovation. But no, but in all seriousness, the city connects. There was so many things that we could say. All right, hey, you know what? April sucked. May is a different month. Let's get that City Connect jerseys on. Guys are coming up. It's a new team, new energy, and for the most part, it's been pretty positive. I feel like we're back now after just 3 games where it feels like we're at a low point again, where it's not like, oh yeah, it's just tough couple games. Like, no, they look bad. They look really bad in all facets. And it feels like we're back to, okay, we're at a low point. How can we get this team
I
back
wouldn't
back with
I wouldn't call it a low point just yet. I mean, when you play your AL East opponents, it's going to be tougher than playing, the other teams in the other division because the competition is so high. And look, the Red Sox are a beatable team. I mean, we beat them last week in
Mhm.
Boston, and I wouldn't say the low point is just yet, but it just seems like we take 10 steps forward and then 20 steps back after like having a good like road trip, having a good win streak, and then it's just like, okay, hey, let's go play some bad baseball where we just look like we don't even know where we are right now. And that's the frustrating thing too. And it's almost just like it's bad all the way around. When they're bad, like when the Rays are bad, they're bad, and they're bad every single place
So bad.
on the team. Like the batting's bad, the fielding's bad, the pitching's bad,
Base running.
base running's bad, manager decisions are bad. So it's like it's not just like one area of the team that's bad. It's the whole shebang, and that's the problem is when you have the whole team that's looking bad and not playing well, then it's like a collapsing building, and that's the frustrating thing is because we started off the season like that, and then beginning of May it started to okay, all right, we're starting to kind of turn this thing around and start looking like a great baseball team like we all thought they were going to be. And now it's
Mhm.
just like, okay, are we back to square one again? Are we going to be back to that April that we saw that was god awful again? And I hope not, because it's like, look, we've gotten a lot of the guys back and they have contributed quite well. I mean, except for Brandon Lau, who should be going bye bye. I can't do it. I can't do it, Drew. I can't. He looks lost at the plate. He looks lost. He just I don't. The
See,
Jay, I think Jay Richard he brought it up on the Jay and Zach show where why does
yeah,
he? I think his quote was, "Why does he get like better treatment than everybody
preferential
else?"
treatment.
Yeah, preferential treatment than everybody else on the team. Why is he able to bat like fourth in the lineup instead of down at like the end of the lineup instead of batting seventh or eighth? Like I don't get it either, and it's something that's just like why he's been doing so bad and not hitting anything at all. Why have him at the top of the order? It boggles. I'm gonna say boggles. It bottles my mind right now. How I know they're paying him a ton of money, and having him in maybe the four spot's gonna bring some life back into his bat, but it's just ain't there, man.
Yeah.
It's not, and he's a guy that's making a ton of money where you can dangle the carrot as a trade chip, but like, what's the value of him right now? And I wanted to ask you, and I talked about this on the Sports Web on Monday. The whole conversation with Zach Eflin, with the Braves are interested in him too. I mean, Bob Nightingale, he can tweet out some stuff that could be true and some things that could be false. So
Yeah.
you take that with a grain of salt. But if the Braves are interested in Eflin, and it kind of makes sense, Eflin's on the final year of his deal with the Rays, and the Rays are probably not going to pay him for
Mm,
next year. Is it two?
yeah, he's got it was a 3-year deal that he signed, if I'm not
So
mistaken.
wait, is it an option to pick it up at the end of the season?
No, it was a 3-year, if I remember correctly, off the top of my head. I think it was three for 40.
And I think this is the last year of the deal, though.
No, his first year with the Rays was last year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
3-year for 40 million, and there is no option. So
there is
he
no
is
option.
he's locked in through next year. But
So,
that's
but
you know
he's going to make a ton of money next year. So it's one thing. It's like, okay, well, you can dangle him and you can dangle Savali, but like Savali isn't great. He's the weakest link in that rotation too right now.
Mhm.
And with Eflin on the IL with back inflammation, quote unquote, it's like
Mhm.
how can this team like gel together and just be a cohesive unit? And I'd hate to say this, but I don't think this is the year, man. I think this is the year they might miss the playoffs.
Yeah, well, they're only going to be a game and a half out of the wild card. Evan, I don't know if you know that, but
Look, as long as they win over 84.5 games, that way I can win
you put the over.
Yeah, I put the over. As long as they do that, I'll be fine. But like, I just don't see them being a playoff caliber team and going like unless they catch fire at the right time in the second half and they make a couple of trades at the deadline to help out with the team. But right now, it's not looking great. It's like looking like they'll be a 500 team the rest of the way.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we're a third of the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
A third of the way through the season, and I mean, they're a 500 team, right? You're going to be actually I believe, a game under 500 after tonight.
Yeah.
If they don't put together a huge rally.
That's not
so. Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I think it's as we've done this podcast now, as sort of really our second season. I know you and I jumped on together a little bit into last year, but there are certain topics I feel like I have less patience with that you are willing to be more patient with, and
it
vice
comes
versa.
with having kids, and you know that you got
but then vice versa. As far as the Rays go, right? There's just Brandon Lau is just. I mean, you want him gone.
I'm not patient with him anymore.
Not patient with him anymore. I get it. I totally get it. Because he looks so bad when he's bad. However, I'm willing to be more patient with him right now, considering he missed 40 games, and he's just come back. He's hit the ball hard when he's made contact. For the most part, he's just been kind of unlucky. So I don't, and him hitting fourth, he's always been a guy at the top of the lineup. Since he's been a regular player for the Rays. So I'm not surprised that he's up in the order. Kevin Love's doing the alternating left, right, right, left, whatever. So that doesn't surprise me a whole lot. I wish we had better options than him to hit in the lineup. I mean, the only other, unless you want to stack the top of the line with righties, the only other lefty option you have right now is Aranda, which, again, I mean, he had a nice double tonight, but like, he's not inspiring any confidence that he's, going to be this guy that the Rays, we heard all spring training, he was going to be a guy for them this year. And we talked about it on the show too, before the season, that like, we're relying on players and like putting our hope in players that have yet to prove that they're capable of being a major league caliber.
It's all about the what ifs.
Yeah.
It's all like, hey, what if this player is going to do this? It's like, okay, we're iffing the whole way with a lot of these guys that, we
want Aranda to be the guy because he's the only other lefty we got. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't have other lefty options available. We don't have a Wander Franco who's a switch hitter, or we don't have a Luke Raley now anymore that is a good power lefty, that can drive in some runs for us. Aranda's the only guy we got. So, but Brandon Lau, I mean, they're stuck with him. I mean, I don't think that because if he hits a hot streak, I don't think that the Rays are going to say, okay, well, let's get rid of him. I mean, I definitely think that he's played his way out of a club, getting the club option picked up for next year. I
don't have any confidence in him getting any kind of hot streak.
No, but and I don't think it would be a situation where he gets hot and the Rays are in a position where like, all right, well, we'll go ahead and trade him. Of course, unless a team comes at him with an offer that they like, but I don't see that happening. So Brandon Lau's here to stay. Or at least for this year. And again, for the most part, you're going to be trading him. If you really try to force the issue, you're trading him at his lowest, without as much value. If you would have traded him after the 2021 season, that's a different story. But it's just, you're hoping he can find something that's like what he had in 2021. But I mean, this year he's making $8.5 million this year, 8.75. And then he's got 2 club options, one at 10.5 and one at 11.5. I cannot fathom. There's no way. There's no way that they're going to pick that up.
Especially if they're like if the Rays are like, okay, it's time to bring Junior up, and
Well,
but that's never gonna happen anytime soon.
that's
It's not.
I don't think that's possible.
I,
We have Harold Ramirez.
I'm so glad I'm drinking in this show. I'm so frustrated because, and I'm always critical about the front office, even though I shouldn't be, because I know these guys are smarter than I am, and they run a baseball team, and
Yeah.
they make oodles of money managing a baseball team.
Mm.
But sometimes it just seems like they are the smartest, dumbest people in the room when it comes to these decisions. And you can quote me on that, but it just seems like some of the things that they do is just like, okay, what's the reason behind this? Because we don't have a reason why, you won't want to bring them up,
Right.
and I know it's because they don't really have any room right now, and you're just kind of hoping on an injury for somebody, or maybe you're trading somebody at the deadline or whatnot, but something's got to give. I mean, look at how the offense is struggling right now.
But he's not fielding good enough in AAA. Evan, that's what Eric Neander tells us. He needs to work on his fielding. That's what Topkin tells us.
Drew, nobody is fielding the ball quite well in this team right now.
We're a team full of Gold Glovers, and what would happen? I mean, they make it sound like the guy can't field routine ground balls. But we're willing to say, yeah, Curtis Mead, here's second base, here's third base on occasion. Yeah, Jonathan Ronda, get your stone hands out here in the field and field some grounders for us while being in the lineup. Like it blows my mind that we're saying there's just no room, but yet we make room for guys that aren't as good of a hitter as Junior Caminero and have proven to be poor fielders in the major league level. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just, this whole season really, I mean, to your earlier point, it has always felt like an uphill battle, uphill climb, whatever you want to call it.
It's going to be like that for the rest of the season.
It's just felt that way from the beginning. And and it goes back to, I honestly feel like it goes back to the Wander thing. Like, I mean, I'm not a karma issue.
It's the juju. It's the juju.
It's just, like we're course correcting. They got off to such a great start last year, and then they were able to really withstand the Wander stuff for the last part of the year. I mean, September, the offense was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then, it's like, all right, well, the other shoe's got to drop. Like, there's no way this team can keep performing at this level when you lose a player like Wander. And then, of course, you add in the injuries, and it's just like the tougher schedule. And it felt like from the jump, this team just did not have the pieces in place or the luck at the beginning of the season to feel like we could really just take off.
I can agree with that.
Slog the whole season, and it's gonna be that way. I really feel like with the current team as currently constructed, it's going to be that way. There's just so many things.
I can definitely agree with that because it almost seems like, I can put this as an analogy. It's like you have a puzzle, and you're trying to put this puzzle together, but you have mismatched pieces from different puzzles to make this puzzle whole. And right now it's not fitting. It's not fitting right now. These pieces that you brought from other puzzles, it's not putting it together. And that's what it seems like for this team, because it just seems like, hey, on paper, we've got a bunch of these mismatched toys, but these mismatched toys aren't playing, well together in this group. So
yeah, it's one of those things where the whole season has just felt, it's felt like they've had a hand tied behind their back. Mm-hmm. And I don't know with Wander too, like, and again, I'm not trying to, like, I will say I give the Rays front office some credit. I know that they're an easy target when things aren't going well, but like, they went out and they tried to get a solution for it, at least a short-term solution. And, the pieces that they've gotten, because I think if Wander's on the team this year, they're not going out and getting Jose Caballero, right? Like that was very clearly, hey, we don't have a shortstop because Taylor Walls is out.
Right.
And we need a shortstop. So that's like, they had to go and do something really quick. And they got Jose Caballero, traded Luke Raley. Now, okay, we have a deficit in a lefty outfield. let's bring in Richie. I don't know if the Richie Palacios thing was a result of the Rayleigh deal. I don't know. But like, I felt like the pieces they brought in as a result of the issues they faced in the offseason are doing pretty good. So I give them credit, but at the same time, it's just felt like I can't remember a Rays team that's like the way it's constructed. It's like all the same guys, but it just feels like they're not gelling.
Gelling
Like it
together.
just
It just doesn't feel
the
right.
puzzle doesn't fit as well as it has. Like
Right.
I can't remember a time where it's like we have talent in AAA, junior aside. Like, I mean, he's obviously included in this, but like we just can't like. There's no. It feels like we're square peg in a round hole type thing. Like there's no.
Yeah.
There's no way we can seamlessly bring players up that could potentially help this team to take the next step or go to the next level, because we have so many guys that are similar, that are not great in the field and that are the same bat, handedness. And, how can so many guys that only play one position that can't move around. Like, it's just
Yeah.
it feels very weird that,
It seems very, very vanilla and very wooden.
Yeah, and it's just not the rate. Like everybody's not that we haven't had players that like, yeah, this is your position, you're not moving off of it, but it just feels the roster feels very inflexible for a team that is usually prides itself on hey, we're using all 26 guys, and I mean, Austin Shenton was up, didn't hardly play at all, and he actually, to his credit, looked pretty. He had some really great at bats towards the back half of his time with the team. But now, like, you got guys like, Harold Ramirez hasn't started in how many games, like once in the last 4 or 5. He's just sitting on the bench. Ahmed Rosario playing sparingly. Like, I don't know. It just feels like it's not a very efficient roster. Like, we have a very inefficient roster construction right now. Again, as you mentioned, everybody at the front office is smarter than us. We're just fans. And obviously we deal much more in emotion. So we, at least I can tend to allow myself to get swayed one side or the other a little bit more frequently than I'm sure the front office does. And they're much more even keel and have a plan and all this stuff. But it just feels like everything is a challenge this year. Like it's going to be really difficult for the team as currently constructed to, I feel like, hit its stride.
I agree with that.
And especially if injuries keep popping up, Josh Lowe being probably top 2 guys you don't need injured right now.
It looks like it's going to be that way.
Outside of Yandy, maybe. And so I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe that buys Harold Ramirez some more time. I feel like he's kind of been on the way out.
I want to pose some questions to you, and this kind of goes back to the Zach Eflin thing. Actually, let's go like 3. We're going to do like 3-parters.
Let's do it. I'm ready to keep talking.
So with the report that Bob Nightingale came out with via USA Today about the Braves are kind of looking into Zach Eflin.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Rays would pull a trigger on that? Like obviously with our rotation right now as it is, with him, he's been up and down all season. Savali's been very frustrating. Taj Bradley's actually looked really good. I mean, 10 strikeouts the other night, fantastic, but obviously with giving up 5 earned runs, not too great. But he's looked okay. And then you got Springs possibly coming back at the end of this month, maybe early June, and then Bob's coming back too as well. Would the Rays pull the trigger on it if they continue on this path the way they are as a 500 ball team? Would they pull the trigger on a trade to send Eflin to the Braves, or would they maybe say, you know what, Eflin's not available, Savali may be the guy for you, or maybe both, or maybe somebody comes out of like left field and says, hey, I'm okay, let's I want to take Savali off your hands right now because we think there's more potential out of him. He might need to change the scenery. And both of those guys are gone. Do you think trades like that could happen with our rotation guys? If this team is just continuing on the path as a 500 team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's let's say that this is all assuming the Rays are kind of staying on this course where They're not quite a playoff team, but they maybe are within reach, within, let's say 3 or 4 games, whatever. Like they're on the fringes, but they're kind of on this course. Obviously, if things change and they take away, they hit a stride, or on the opposite of that, if they bottom out, obviously that will. But let's just say they kind of stay the course of this 500 team for the argument's sake.
Look, I'll swap Charlie Morton for Zach Eflin. Like, give me back Charlie Morton. Give me back Uncle Charlie.
I wish they would have had him in 21 with that rotation, having him on that. I digress.
They should have paid him that money. They should have paid him.
I know, but anyway, I think so. But you got to think back before the season, like Stu Sternberg. What did he say? We talked about on this podcast.
He's uncomfortable with a $90 million
I mean, this is literally the most expensive race. Can you believe? Like, and we talked about this too. Like before all this happened, and so this is not just me. This is not just me saying, well, looking at the results and being like, all right, well, I told you so. Like, I mean, it literally before the season, looking at the roster, we were talking about a team where Jonathan Ronda was going to be the cleanup hitter. That was what was reported before he got hurt. He was going to be the cleanup hitter against right-handed batters. And that was the team that was the most expensive team in Rays history. So this is the team that is making Stu Sternberg uncomfortable with payroll.
That's scary to me. If this is the team that's making him uncomfortable, if this is what $90 million is getting you for a team, and this is making you uncomfortable, that $90 million is just burning through a hole in your pocket right now because it's not good.
I mean, I think that next year, I think there's a very, very real possibility. I think even if the Rays, short of the Rays winning a World Series or making a deep playoff run, I think this team is going to look very different next year. And
I agree.
That's not necessarily they're going to blow it up. That's not necessarily a bad thing because the pitching is still going to be
it's not a bad thing, but
really strong.
Even Drew, even if they make the playoffs, which as of right now, I hardly doubt they're going to do. This team is going to be blown up. Like Randy's going to be gone. Yandy's going to be gone. Lau's going to be gone. Like the guys that are making the most money, they're gone. Like you're going to see a brand new team next year. Brand spanking new. So Rays fans out there right now that have bought jerseys and are all attached to these players right now, get ready to cry me a river on your big Rays pillow because it's going to look different.
Joke's on you guys because I got my one Rays jersey I bought my entire life is a Wander Franco jersey. And next year, when he's back from suspension and his jail time, it's going to be perfect timing. No,
He's kidding everyone.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding
everyone.
I'm figuring out what to do with my Wander Franco jersey. I thought about just taping over the back of it. But
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if they ever give us. I mean, they can't do it now, but it'd be interesting to see when they give his number out to somebody.
Anyway. Well, really back to the trades and stuff. Though.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So it's what happens when I start drinking on a podcast. It's the first time I've ever drunk on a podcast before. So new territory. The whole team. I think regardless, you're going to see some trades. I could easily see a scenario where it's we're competing. So we might add a little here on the fringes, but we're going to also subtract and get value for the following year. So I think you could see that if Eflin comes back and is healthy and looks good. I mean, I think you could easily see Zach Eflin being dealt. That doesn't. I mean, he's slated to make $18 million next year.
Then they're not going to pay that.
They're not going to. I mean,
they're not going to pay that.
So if they can get the right
give
deal,
Uncle Charlie what? Charlie Morton was looking for what? 14.
Yeah.
If they're not, if you can't pay Uncle Charlie 14, you're definitely not going to give Zach 18.
Yeah, and so I think Zach Eflin, if they can get the right deal, I think they'll trade him. I think if they don't trade him at the deadline, I could easily see them trading him in the offseason. I think. I mean, if things get bad, if things get bad, and again, we have no idea what they're going to do, but if things get bad and it's like, all right, this team, they gotta start getting guys up to get them experience and creating space for some of these guys in AAA, right? Getting the guys that are going to be a part of the future, Curtis Mead. I know Ronda's on the team now, but Jonathan Ronda, Junior Caminero, some of these guys, a guy like Ruben Cardenas. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name.
No,
Right.
you are. You are.
Like, some of these guys that have been in AAA that, have been kind of filling some gaps here and there or biding their time. Like, if they decide, hey, we're going to get those guys, if things go south, I mean, I think Yandy Diaz could be a guy you see go out. Randy's value is probably as low as it's going to get, so I can't imagine that. But he's still got 2 arbitration years left, so that's somebody that could be valuable if a team's willing to take on his salary, and obviously knowing what he can bring when he's right, and also from like off the field crowd perspective, like he's kind of a star in that aspect. So he brings a lot of intangibles that outside of just when he's doing well on the field, outside of just the stats as a player. So I mean, as far as this deadline though, I think Zach Eflin, obviously there's some smoke out there already about him. I think you're going to see other teams pop up as more teams decide they need to trade for pitching. I think his name's going to be out there quite a bit. I don't know who else on the team you really look at right now that's got their value high enough that the Rays would get something as in a good return for them, that they'd be willing to trade somebody that uh that will be desirable for another team. I think Eflin's really the only one, unless they decided to go after some of these. I mean, I think Ahmed Rosario is an easy trade candidate come the deadline. If he's still serviceable and doing well, I think you would see him be traded for, not a big time deal, of course, but just some sort of prospect to come back in that deal. Cause I mean, obviously he's a free agent after this year, and I can't imagine the Rays are going to look at bringing him back, assuming, some of the guys they're counting on, like a Junior Caminero, like a Curtis Mean, like some of those guys, actually perform like they should. So I think Eflin's really the only one. Maybe a Phil Maton. Pete Fairbanks, I've heard kind of talked about a little bit. Obviously, if teams are really desperate for bullpen help, and he's looking really good lately, he's a guy that could be on the block if it comes to that. But he's making, I got the contracts pulled up right now. He's making the exact same money next year as he was this year. So his salary doesn't jump until 2026 to $7 million, and that's a club option. So I feel like the Rays would have to be blown away to trade Fairbanks, because again, at the end of the day, as bad as this year might be, or as frustrating as this year might be, next year, even if the team looks different position player wise, the pitching staff, there is going to be so many guys, and I realize the whole depth thing and us having a lot of depth of the pitching staff is almost kind of a joke at this point because there's always injuries. But you really think about it. I mean, like, let's say for argument's sake, I mean, even if Eflin's not on the team next year, you still have, and they can make other trades, of course, but you still have McClanahan, Rasmussen, Springs, Bradley, Littell, Shane Baz, Aaron Savale, Ryan Pepio,
Tyler Alexander.
Tyler Alexander's been fine. I think he could have a place in a bullpen or.
I said this a couple days ago. It's a good problem to have, because especially at the trade deadline for this year, like, having all that depth is a fantastic problem to have, because now you're almost like that kid in the candy store where you can kind of dangle what you want in front of teams that need arms, because there's going to be plenty of teams calling up the Rays going, look, we need an arm. What do you got? Who's available? And I think I want to reel back my frustration real quick, because I've had some time to kind of ponder this in my mind after the 9% alcohol in my brain. If this team stays around 500, and they are competitive, and if they stay in the division, and if they are playing good baseball and they stay around the 500 mark, they'll be fielding calls, and you'll see guys dealt, but they're going to be dealt with not prospects. I hope to see some guys that are going to make an immediate impact if they trade. But that's only if this team is going to be at staying around the 500 mark at the trade deadline. Because with the influx of arms that we have, you can get stuff back. And I swear to God, if they go, oh yeah, we're going to trade this guy and get just a bunch of prospects, come on, man. We've seen that song and dance before. If you guys are looking to make the playoffs this year, you got to get MLB. You got to get guys that are already in the show, and you got to get them back for a good return. So I'm glad that you brought up the point with the influx of arms that we have. Is like, that's by the time these guys are coming back is like the time that where they can make the moves they want to and say, okay, these guys are available. We've got these guys coming back. Who's expendable? Who can we get the most value out of? And that's what I would like them to see if they're at that point where they're still staying competitive in the East to
Right.
like make a possible run for the playoffs. But if they're like playing ball like this and their schedule coming up isn't it's not getting any better because you got the Royals who've been surprisingly good this year.
Yeah, they're on a 6-game winning streak.
Coming into town. I'm actually going on Saturday. And then look, you get kind of a 3-day break with the Athletics. I mean, hopefully they sweep the Athletics.
I've heard that before.
But then you're playing the Orioles right after that in Baltimore, which it's the Orioles are one of the best teams in baseball right now. So
yeah, they're really good.
It's this stretch of games after getting swept tonight by the Red Sox is going to be critical. It's another critical like stretch of games because you've got one of the number one teams in the league right now, and I just turned off my light. But then you also have, you could if you at least take 2 out of the 3 against the Royals, and then maybe sweep the Athletics.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you don't play like crap against Oakland. And then you kind of gain a little bit of that ground back. But with the way this team is, it's like it's unpredictable of how they're going to go into each series.
Yep. Yeah, you never know. I mean, and baseball's weird like that. I feel like teams can, can be cruising and then all of a sudden things just go south quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if the Rays take 2 or 3, let's say 2 or 3 from the Royals and 2 or 3 from the Athletics, we're probably forgotten all about the Red Sox. Again, it's just the Red Sox series. I mean, it's just, missed opportunities. I think that there are more. I am hopeful that the Rays are still a playoff contending team. And by playoff contending, I mean fighting for the second or third wild card. I don't think that the division is a realistic goal at this point.
No, it's not. You're fighting for the wild card right now.
Fighting for the wild card. But unfortunately, so
although if they don't make the wild card, I'm happy with that because now they don't have to hang on one of those god awful wild card banners.
Yeah, that's always brutal.
Yeah.
So me hoping that they're a playoff team really is not so much about what I'm seeing on the field. It's more just me going off of track record, going off of what I've seen over the last 4 or 5 years or the last few years from some of the players on this roster, like Yandy, like Josh Lowe, like Randy Rosarena. I mean, everybody outside of Isak Paredes really, he's the only one.
You know what, Drew? That's a guy that could be a trade chip.
Yeah, but I don't know. He's still so like it's weird. He's not the most exciting player, but he is just
he's relatively consistent.
Yeah, he's doing really well. I feel like the move is you get Junior or Isak to play a different position somewhere. And whether that's, they move on from Yandy at a certain point, through via trade or what, I don't know, or maybe make Yandy more of a DH, I don't know, but get him off his feet a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or you rotate Paredes and Yandy and Junior through kind of the first base, third base, DH kind of roles.
You could always put Paredes as your DH.
Yeah. Or you could put Caminero there. Like, I don't, that's what I never understood. Like, we don't necessarily have to have Caminero play in the field this year. I don't know. But again, there are so much more evidence this year on the field. Like, what my eyes tell me is that this is not a good team.
Yeah.
So I'm still hopeful that they're a playoff team, but it's really just me trying to will it into existence rather than like, no, this team, what I'm watching, this is a good team. Now, other parts of the team have picked it up. I think the bullpen tonight wasn't a good night, and I like this isn't a good series overall for anybody, but I really do feel like the bullpen's been much better and the least of our concerns at this point. But it just feels like there's just so much that I'm seeing, like you mentioned, base running issues constantly, fielding issues. I mean, hustle issues at times. Like, it's just a sloppy team right now. And again, like, that's what I mean. I bring it back to Junior. Like, he's not the savior by any means, and I don't feel like he's gonna come up and hit 30 home runs in his first year or anything, but it's just you
He
gotta
could help.
shake you
He could
gotta
help out.
shake things up. Like the
Exactly.
team just gotta have a shakeup. So whether that's opening up a spot via trade or what, like I don't know, but the team needs a shakeup if they want to. That's
Sacrifice
how
a
I
live
feel.
chicken, do what we got to do.
Yeah. So
I'm
I
just saying.
just, and back to talking about the team to looking a little different. I mean, I wanted to make this point is that, you know, and we've heard the Rays minor league system in the past is really, really strong. And we've had a number of players that we've been really excited about. I mean, Vidal Brujan was one of those guys. I mean, Curtis Mead's been pretty disappointing this far. I mean, but he was a guy that we were really excited about. So certainly getting excited about prospects isn't always something that comes to fruition. But, you look at guys like Junior Caminero and Carson Williams is crushing it in Double-A. He's probably going to get promoted to Triple-A soon. You're talking about, you know, that's half your infield right there, the left side of your infield, maybe three-fourths of the infield if you throw in Isak there as well. Like you got Xavier Isaac crushing it. That you're talking about Isaac and Williams that are guys that are ascending rapidly in prospect rankings. Like Kylie McDaniel on ESPN today had Carson Williams as his third ranked prospect over Junior Caminero. So
Jeez.
you're talking about guys that in Isaac's going to be a fast riser too. I read I think in the Athletic they were talking about him being if he keeps it up being a top 10 guy next year. So you're talking about guys that are going to have to get a spot on the roster in the next year or two. So you're going to like the Rays are going to have to open these spots up. Like it's not going to be like, so there is going to be turnover. And I think it's going to start this summer. Even if the team continues on its path, like I still think they're going to start opening up some spots. And then certainly over the offseason next year, I think it's going to be, a lot different. But, I really hope they keep, they have a strong series this weekend.
I will let you know.
I
I will
mean,
be wearing my City Connects on Saturday. So
yeah, I want them to pull it together. It's frustrating to watch them play. There's just no energy. Like again, it just goes back to like feels like the energy is just really down on the team. And I get like it's hard to have energy when you're not scoring runs, but
it's also
you
hard
know,
to have energy when you're like not playing well all the
so
way around too. That's
um
the sad thing.
hey, last thing I know we're coming up on our time a little bit here, but so Josh is out, I assume.
Yes, yes.
Right. I mean, I've never heard of a player with side tightness that doesn't go on the IL at least for 10 days. Like they're certainly not gonna. I mean, unless it was somehow really, really mild, I can't imagine that they would.
I'm hoping that's the worst case scenario, that it was mild, because it didn't seem like, I mean, he wasn't grimacing in pain. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't. There's nothing. There is nothing to that Tompkins reported. Given the fact that it's the same side, though, that's what worries me is that I can't imagine it's like, oh yeah, he'll be out through the weekend, but he'll be back next week. Like I can't imagine he's not. So they right now are down. They're down a pitcher, right? Because they decided when Pepio came back and when Brandon Lau came back, instead of dropping, a hitter like a Ronda or maybe a Harold Ramirez, they dropped Manuel Rodriguez, and then Erasmo was DFA'd when Pepio came back. So I would imagine maybe they bring a pitcher, but I mean, what do you think? Like Harold Ramirez, guys that do you think that there's a chance they bring up Caminero at all with Josh Lowe going out, or is it just going to be probably bullpen piece and call it a day?
I say bullpen piece and call it a day.
Probably just bring up Rodriguez back, right? Now that
Probably.
because he can come back up because of an injury.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
I just yeah, it's just frustrating. I mean, I feel like this team, you can just see the offense is not good. It's not consistently putting up runs. Like it's just not. So I just don't understand them not being willing to shake up the offense a little bit more. But
But we'll
it's going to
see.
be even more of a struggle with Low out now. So
I agree. Well, let us know, everybody, in the comments in our YouTube page. We're going to wrap it up tonight for our latest episode of Raise Rewind. We were kind of saucy tonight. We had a lot of grievances to air out because of the way the Rays have been playing the past couple of days. So comment below. Leave us your thoughts and your questions about what we can answer on our next episode of Raise Rewind. For myself and Drew, make sure to go to our YouTube page, The Sick Podcast, Raise Rewind, hit the subscribe and notification bell for every new episode that drops. We'll see you guys next time on the Raise Rewind podcast. If you're out at the Tropicana Field this weekend on Saturday, if you see me out there and say Raise Rewind is the best Tampa Bay Rays podcast off the land, I'll buy you a free beer. So let's do that. So we'll see you guys next time on Raise Rewind.
Peace. See you.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Raise Rewind with Buschman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.